Hi, my name is Katie Eck. I'm a senior PD specialist here at Schoology. In this short presentation, I'm going to be walking you through the end of year processes, some things that you can do to quickly save the work that you've done throughout the course of this year so that you can easily reuse it for next year. Look at some different things that you can do over the summer, not that you have to, just some optional things if you do want to work on some things over the summer in Schoology. And then lastly, look at the most efficient way to restart your courses, start the beginning of a school year to save yourself some time when doing things and getting those courses set up in this order here. So you can just sit back and watch. And I do need to mention that you're probably aware that every school or district does have the ability to customize their users' permissions and experience in Schoology, but the majority of the things that I show you should be available to everyone. But if after watching this you don't see something that I show you, or it looks significantly different in your Schoology account, contact your Schoology system administrator, your IT ed tech folks. It probably just means that they have settings set up differently that might not be available to you, but I'll try to kind of mention those things wherever that may occur. So we're going to start out with a few slides and talking about what happens at the end of a year or a grading period. If you are secondary teachers, you've already been through probably this experience of having courses possibly archive at the end of a semester. If you're an elementary teacher, it might be the first time that it has happened if you're new to Schoology this year and you had year-long courses. So what we're talking about with archiving happens automatically at the end of the grading period. So whatever date has been set by your student information system as the last date in that grading period, a couple days before that, you'll start seeing this yellow banner saying that your courses are about to be archived. There's usually a 48-hour, at least a 48-hour grace period after the end of the grading period before the course actually archives. But you'll see this banner. You can remove it by clicking the little X if it's in your way when they do start appearing. Okay. So after that grading period end date, the courses will move from your active course listing, meaning when you click on courses, you will no longer see those tiles. It doesn't mean they're gone. It just means that they've moved to the archived tab. Do not panic, do not fear. They will never be permanently deleted and you will not lose access to them. So a couple more things about what happens when courses archived. Like I mentioned, you'll never lose access to them. They simply move to the archive tab, which can be found by going to courses, my courses, and then going into this archive tab here. If you do not see an archive tab, if you just see my courses and course listing, that is because it means you haven't had a single course archive yet. As soon as one of your courses archives, you get access to that archive tab area. So as long as you've got one archived course, you'll see that tab when you go to courses and my courses in your account. So what is contained in the course archive? Basically everything. So that means all of your course content, everything up until the last day of the grading period that you did, any grades that you entered, all student work, all student posts, all of those will permanently be housed in the course archive. You could go back and make changes to that content. However, students usually do not have access to archived courses. That is a setting in Schoology. That's one of those customizable settings. And when I say usually, it doesn't mean all, but I would say that it is 95% of schools and districts have it set so that only teachers and staff can access those archived courses, whereas students then do not have that ability to access that content. So let's go ahead and take a look at my archives. I'm going to click on courses, my courses. And you can see the current and the archived area. I'm going to click on my archive tab. Mine takes a little bit of time to come up, and I'll tell you why. It's because, like I mentioned, nothing ever gets deleted from Schoology's. Nothing gets deleted from our archives. I've been using Schoology for quite a while, so you can see that archived courses are listed chronologically with the most recently archived courses at the top. As I start going through this list, it goes back in time. And if I were to go way back here, I would have courses all the way back to 2015. I promise. There's 2016. They're all still there. Okay. So you do not lose access to those archives. If you need to get something from years ago, or even just this year, you can always go back into any of those archived classes and copy information out of them. Okay. So it should be very reassuring that you're not going to lose access to any of that information. So I'm still in my archive here, and I'm about to show you the process that we want to do to go ahead and save all of our course content to our resource area so that we can easily bring it back into our empty course shells when we get those next August or September when you start school. So, but I do want to go ahead and show you while I'm in this archived area here that I can go into any of these old courses. We can see this one ended in October 2020, but if I did forget to save this to resources, or I want to get something out of it that I didn't copy over, I can always get back into those, and I can go to the gear button to the right of any folders or any items, and I can copy it to courses, meaning I could bring it directly into any current courses that I'm instructing, or I'm able to save this entire course using the Save Course to Resource option from either a current or an archived course. So before we save our course to resources, let's talk a little bit about being organized and making those easy to find come August or September when school starts again. So I'm going to go back to these slides for a moment and talk about using your home resource area, which is your personal resource area. But then we are going to use a resource collection that exists in your personal home area to keep things organized, and if you want, maybe work with some colleagues over the summer or into the next school year, if you so desire. So let's then go to my home resource area. I'm going to click on resources at the top to get to the default area, which is this home. So my personal area here. So if you're anything like me and you've been using Schoology even 1 year, you can see the middle panel here, my home area, gets pretty busy and unorganized and very full very quickly. So I have lots and lots of resources to scroll through as I've used this over the course of the year to make copies of different items or move things around. So I always have a goal that I'm going to come in and clean up this home resource area. I never get it done. So no worries. Instead, I'm going to encourage you to take advantage of those resource collections so that you don't have to go hunting through that big long list of resources to find your full courses for next semester. So in this area here, I'm going to click on the little filing cabinet button with the tiny green plus sign. It's a very small button, but when I hover over it, it says add collection. And I'm going to create a collection for my entire school year, my entire course that I use this year. So if I'm a secondary teacher, I want to have a collection for each course or each subject that I teach. So if I teach Algebra 1 and Algebra 2, I would probably create 2 collections, one for each level of algebra. So we'll just do Algebra 1 2020 21 as an example for a secondary teacher. Now, for elementary teachers who typically have a course for each content area, you have a choice, 2 choices in how you want to do this. You could, like a secondary teacher, create a different collection for each subject area that you teach. Or you can create one collection for your entire grade level. So we'll call this 5th grade 2021. And then after I create that collection, I'm going to click on it because now inside a collection, I also have the ability to organize that collection with folders. So then if I wanted to have everything in the same collection, I could just do a folder for each content area just to keep things neat. Just do a couple content areas. So doesn't matter, just whatever you prefer in terms of an organizational strategy there. Okay. Just as long as you're using those collections to kind of keep your full courses, completed courses separate from the home resource areas. It's just going to save you some time next semester. Okay. All right, so now that we have those collections and resources ready, we can go into our courses, our sections that we taught this year, and save those to the collections with a single click. So I'm going to be using this course sample here, prepping your course for end of year, beginning of year. And I have some folders in here. So again, this can be done while your courses are still active or right after they've archived, or even if you don't want to do it this summer, you want to wait to do this step right before the semester starts, no problem. You can do it whenever works for you. I do encourage you though to follow this method because it will allow you to bring your entire course into your new course shells very quickly all at once without having to do it item by item or folder by folder. So when you're ready, you can go to options and then save course to resources. This option is only found at the materials landing page of your course. So not inside one of the folders. You have to be at the main level of your course on the materials tab. Click options, and then you'll see this choice to save your entire course to resources. So what this does is button up your entire course, your entire semester, your year, whatever the case may be, into a single folder with a single click. You do not need to create a new folder because it makes a folder for you. The name of that folder will be the name of your course. However, you do want to change the location of where you're saving it. It will default to home. Go ahead now and change that to that collection that you just created for it. So for this one, I will say this is my 5th grade 2021. I don't need to put it in a folder, like I said, unless you did this strategy where you created a folder inside the 5th grade collection as an elementary teacher, and I'll put this in my math folder and just say submit. You will always get this message saying that this is a large operation, and it will let you know if you go to your transfer history, this link here, when it's completed. Usually it's very quick, depending on the time of day and what all is going on in Schoology. You can see that mine, by the time I got to transfer history, this link is active. That means it's done. If you see a link where it's black and it says pending, that means it might need a little bit more time. You can close that tab there and just know that that means it's ready and waiting for you in that resource collection. So let's go up and see where it landed. I'm going to go up to my resources. We put it in this 5th grade collection in the math folder. So there, my whole course with the course folder has been added in that collection. All right, so that is the first step. I'm going to go back to our bullets here with our agenda. First couple steps, we've organized our resources with collection and we've saved our course to resources. Let's look at a few other things that we recommend doing as part of the end of year process. So the next might be to save your rubrics to your resources from your courses. So if you don't have rubrics yet in resources, I'm going to go back to that same course. And I'm going to go to grade setup and click on the rubric area. So here is my list of rubrics that I utilized in the course, this year. Now, if these rubrics were attached to graded items, if I had assignments that I had already used them with and they were attached to those assignments, those discussions, or any assessment questions, those rubrics will travel with those materials. Okay. So they will go with them, but if you want to keep your rubrics separate so that you can reuse them and maybe attach them to other materials in the future, you might want to save them individually as well. So I can say these I do need to go through one by one by going to that gear button to the right of them. And I'm going to keep them in my home collection. I already have a folder that I created for my rubrics. So I'm going to just save some of those rubrics also to my resources. In a folder that I have ready for them. So this is an optional step, like I mentioned, in terms of saving those rubrics. If they are single-use rubrics that you already have attached and used with certain assignments, discussions, or assessment questions or test quiz questions, no problem. When you went through that process of saving the whole course to resources, those rubrics traveled with those items here. So for example, let me go ahead and let's see, show one of my assignments here that has a rubric with it. This is a rubric graded assignment. So I promise you that when this assignment moved into my resources through the Safe Course to Resources project, this rubric traveled with it. All right, so let's look at a few other end of year processes that you might want to do to clean some things up. And the first is to delete or archive any groups that you may have created and that you may not need for next school year. So when I go to my groups here, I can only do this with any groups in which I'm the admin. So maybe if I was the sponsor for the French Honor Society and I don't want to reuse that content again, I have the option of deleting or archiving it. So let's look at what the differences are. I'm going to go to groups and then my groups here. And unlike courses, we can manually archive any group where we are an admin, where we have that shield. Okay. So if it was, content that was specific to that school year and I'm going to start all over next year, I may want to archive it. Okay. However, remember that groups are perpetual. So if it's content that you want your members to have access to in the following school year and you have the same members, you can just keep that group active. So I'm going to just first look at archiving. I will go to one of my practice groups here, and I'm just going to go to the gear button and archive it. Okay. So what this will do will archive it for all group members. However, those members will still be able to access that content when they log into their account and they go to groups, my groups. Now they'll have a group archive tab. If your members are students, they will probably be able to access those groups, but this is one of those things that will be dependent on the specific permissions that students have within your Schoology environment. So you might need to check with your district leaders on that one. Okay. So, but if you are a member of a group that's been archived, you will find it in this group archive tab here. And you'd still be able to get to that content, especially as a staff member. I'm fairly positive. Now, the other option is to delete a group. So if I go to the gear button, instead delete it, what that will do is move it into the deleted groups area, which you will see if you have deleted any groups that you were the admin for. So when I went to groups, my groups, see the little gray link at the top right here that says deleted groups. So just like courses, nothing ever gets deleted in Schoology permanently. It just goes into this deleted group area. So if you accidentally delete a group, no worries. You can always come back to this deleted groups area, check mark the group that you want to bring back and restore it immediately. It will bring back all the content as an active group and all the members. So you wouldn't have to re-enroll members. Everything comes back as it was. So I could go ahead and restore that. Now, the difference between deleting groups and archiving groups is that if you delete a group, that content is no longer accessible to the members, only you as a group leader, because you can get into the deleted groups area. But members would no longer be able to get to that content. If you want them to still be able to get to it, your better option is to archive the group. All right. So I should mention though, I'm going to go into my archived groups areas in that just like deleted groups can be restored, I can also restore an archived group. So easy to change your mind on any group decisions there. All right, so next we are going to look at two important items for anyone who uses the Schoology Google Drive assignment app or the Microsoft OneDrive assignment app. So we're going to go into Google Drive, show you how to clean up your Schoology Google Drive assignment folder for next year so that things don't get very messy and confusing, and then show you how to do the same thing for the Microsoft version of the assignment app. So we'll start with Google and then we'll do the same thing with Microsoft. So I'm going to go to my drive, and if you used the Schoology Google Drive assignment app even once in any of your courses throughout the past year, you have in your drive a folder, I promise you, that is called Schoology Google Drive Assignments. Okay, now you're seeing a lot of them in my drive, and that's only because I have multiple accounts as a trainer. So I have multiple. However, I promise you only have one of them. You should have one folder that's called Schoology Google Drive Assignments. That's the overall top level folder that is created by Schoology and Google Drive when you use the Schoology Google Drive app. The first time you create an assignment, it builds this folder inside your drive. So, and then when I click inside that folder, it then builds a folder for every course that you use the app with. So in this case, you can see I've got 2 courses here. So what will happen is that next year, Schoology will continue to use the same top level folder called Schoology Google Drive Assignments. So if you don't do this step that I'm going to show you in terms of archiving your course folders inside the top level Google Drive assignment folder, what will happen is you'll get new course folders next year that'll be mixed in with your past course folders. So in order to keep things nice and neat, what we recommend is after those grading periods have ended, courses have been archived, then you do this step. If you do this step before students are done working in your course, you will break the link between the Google Drive assignments in Schoology and Google here. So definitely want to wait. Last step, something that you'd want to, do when students are no longer working, the courses have been archived. So you can see here, I have a folder that I created for 1920 course assignments and then 2021. I'll go ahead and just demonstrate within the Schoology Google Drive one more time. I'm going to create a new folder, and that's where you can just name it, whatever you like here, and create that within the Schoology Google Drive assignment folder. You can change the color if you like, so you can easily find it. And then when you're ready, you can select this year's course level folders. So the titles that you're looking here will be your sections or your courses in Schoology. I'm going to do a shift control to select multiple courses here, and then I'm going to move them into that archived folder that I just created. So now you'll only have, one or two, depending on how many years you've been doing this, archived folders. You can still get back into those folders. It just means that those links won't be valid in the Schoology course anymore, but it keeps the documents here, and all of your student documents will still be here. The instructor does have ownership of these documents. In the students drive, they don't need to do anything like this. All of their documents are in shared with me. If you do want to turn over ownership of these to the students, I do know some teachers who go through each and every student and then give them editing rights to all of their documents. Another way that students, if they do need, full ownership of any work that they did, at the end of the school year, they can go into their Google Drive, find their documents and shared with me, and they can make copies if they want to. Okay. So that is the Google version. I do want to go back to my drive here and remind everyone what not to do. Do not go to this top level folder, the Schoology Google Drive assignment folder. Do not delete it. Okay. So Schoology will look for that same folder next year. As soon as you start using the assignment app again, and it will place those course folders inside that top level folder. So we do want you to keep that one. Don't delete it. You can archive the course folders inside it. Okay. All right, let's look at OneDrive and doing the same thing. If you use OneDrive instead in the OneDrive assignment app, just like Google, in my OneDrive, Schoology and Microsoft work together. They create a folder for you called Schoology Microsoft OneDrive Assignments. Structure is exactly the same. When I go into that folder, I've got a course folder for every section that I've taught and used the Microsoft OneDrive assignment app in this year. So you can see lots and lots of courses that I have. I definitely need to clean these up. Same thing where you can go ahead and just create a new folder, call it 2021 archived, whatever you like, and then move those course folders into the archive. So with Microsoft, I'm going to possibly select multiple and then say move to. Find the folder that I want them moved to and say move there. There we go. And now my archive has several course folders and I can clean that up for next year. Same thing, do not delete the Schoology Microsoft OneDrive assignment folder. That would delete the student work with it. That's why we also do not want those deleted. Okay. All right, so the last possible step of ending the year that I want to mention is exporting portfolios. Okay. This does not need to be done very often because portfolios follow students and are available to students throughout their career, their time in your school district. So if they're second graders, third graders who plan to stay in the district, move on and are moving on to third grade, they're going to have access to their second grade portfolios until they leave the district. So this would be more, of a student item here. If they are either graduating and they had built portfolios that they were proud of, or possibly know they're leaving the district and they want to save their portfolios, that's something they can do by going to their portfolios, which live in their profile area. I'm going to go to my portfolios. And like I said, only if they're leaving the district or graduating and they have something that they want to save, they can go ahead and export that portfolio as a zip file. Will take a little bit of time, but it builds a nice little HTML zip file, index file that they can then open and access in any web browser. So that's exporting portfolios. So let's go back now and look at a few optional items that you can do over the summer once your courses have archived. And if you're in that in-between spot where your student information system has not created your new courses for the following year yet, which usually happens pretty close to the start of school. Okay. So if you do want to work on some new materials for students or do some editing and improvements of items from your previous courses, you can do that in your resources over the summer. Okay. So I'm going to go back to my resources. And I can find those items that I saved in those collections. And as you can see, you can get into any of your previous items here. You can edit them directly in resources if you want to make some changes. Something didn't work quite the way that you wanted it to, and you've thought of a better way to do things. You can go ahead and edit those masters within your resources so they'll be ready to go for the following school year. Okay. Or if you want to add to them, you definitely can build new materials in resources here. So I'm up in my resources, and if I want to add assignments, assessments, etc., I can build those same items right here within my resources. Oops. Now, the other advantage to saving these within these collections is that you can share these materials within a collection with colleagues. So if you want to work with your teammates on some new items over the summer, you can do that in a shared collection. So after you create the collection, I'm going to go ahead and click on my collection here. You see the share option up here. So it's all personal information to you until you click on that share. And then if you say, oh, Mrs. Davis and I team teach, we want to create some materials or edit some things that I did this past year, I'm going to give her access to my collection. I'm going to, by choosing her, when I say add people, right? And then after I've added any colleagues that I want, you can do as many as you like. It doesn't have to be just one. I can go back to that sharing button, and it's like Google or Microsoft in that I can give my friends either just viewing access to the materials in my collection, meaning they can come into the area in their resources and make copies of anything from my course, my collection here, or they can they can actually just make copies of it, or they could add it to a course of their own if they wanted to. They can't change anything if they only have view access. Okay. If you both, though, want to be able to add and edit materials in that collection, you want to change their rights to editing, and then just say save changes. Then both of you have access to go into any items within this collection, and you would both have editing and the ability to add new resources to that collection. So that is working together, if you so choose, in a shared resource collection. And then one more thing couple other things that you can do over the summer if you want to stay active and look around, see what's available. In the public areas, there are two public areas in Schoology: public resources and public groups. Both of these also may be restricted by your district. Some districts allow teachers to access and join these areas, some do not. Okay, so I'm going to show you what it looks like if you do have access to it, but this is one of those where I can't promise that everybody does. Okay. So first, public resources. You can see I'm over in resources, and then I can click this public option here. Will bring you to our very large area where you can search by all of these filters here, public resources. So these are resources that every Schoology users from the beginning of time has had the ability, again, unless it was restricted by their school or district, to add items to. So you can see we do have a rating system, but these are not vetted by anybody. But you can see usually how many downloads if something had and what the rating was. One of the items that people really like to get from public resources are, you can see popular badges here. That's kind of a favorite. In addition to being able to come to the file format filter, and then if there's specific discussions, rubrics, assignments that you're looking for, you could filter by that file format there. If you find things that you're interested in, just click the little plus sign and it'll say added. And where those go usually is to this area it defaults to called downloads in your resources, unless you change it and you save it to a different collection. But typically people just click that plus sign and it gets added to their downloads, which I will show you. When I go back to my home resources, I'm going to click resources at the top. And there's the downloads area. It should be right under home or learning objective here. That's usually where you'll find any of those public resources that you added here. Great place to check them out to decide if then you want to make any edits to them or copy them to your own home area here. So that's public resources. Now let's look at some groups that are run by Schoology. So if you go to groups and then my groups, you may, can't guarantee it, see this tab for public groups. If you do see that tab, it means your district allows you to join public groups. You may just browse the topics here. You can see lots and lots of members, some great resources here, with Schoology educators being the biggest and I would say most active group. So great place where all of our users share ideas and ask for help on a daily basis, and you'll get lots and lots of answers to most any question that you ask there. So if you do decide to join one of these, what you'll do is click join group, and we will get your request. You won't have immediate access to these groups because we do verify that you're a legitimate user before we let you in, but within a few days, usually those requests are approved, and then you would come to groups and then see any of those new public groups that you join in your groups list here. All right, so that is our last item possibly in over the summer activities. So let's move on to restarting your courses beginning of the school year. So we're going to look at my recommendations for doing this in this order because it will save you a bit of time. So the first thing before you ever bring your content into your new courses when they become available, usually, like I said, when scheduling is done a week or two before school starts, you will come into your Schoology account, and when you click on courses, you'll see a bunch of new tiles back to the generic blue geometric shape here. They won't say empty course shell. They'll have the names and the titles of your courses, but I'm just going to use my empty course shell as an example here. Okay, so it will be just that, empty and waiting for you to put and set up the content. All right, so the first step we want to do is the grade setup process. If we do the grade setup process first, it can save us time when we bring the content in later, because if we're reusing categories that we had from last year, those categories will automatically match up if they're the same, and then it'll save us a little bit of time. So I'm going to talk through two scenarios in terms of grade setup, because we know we have lots of folks with different processes here. And this again is one of those processes is very highly customized, usually within your district. So, you know, most schools or districts will provide a grade setup one sheet, a guide, a job aid, something like that, that'll walk you through step by step how they want you to do this. Okay. So the first scenario is for schools and districts who do not sync grades back to their student information system gradebook, such as eSchool Plus, Power Teacher Pro, Skyward, Infinite Campus. Okay. So if you do not sync grades from Schoology into another gradebook, follow this process. Okay. So what you'll do is go into any one of your sections or courses and manually add those categories by clicking the category button. Okay. So two options here. You can go ahead and add your categories real quickly. I'm going to reuse my categories from my previous course. Okay, so I can go ahead and create them manually. And I just have a few, so it's not a big deal for me to go ahead and just add 3 new categories here. Or if I wanted to reuse the same categories from previous courses, I can go back into my archived courses and go to copy settings. And I can go ahead and just copy my categories. If I have scales and rubrics I want to reuse, no problem. I can go back and get those from one of my previous year's courses in the archives and copy them into my new courses. Really easy that way. Okay. Or if I just want to copy the categories, I can get those done really quickly. Or I can create my categories in my first section and then take advantage, like I am here, of the copy settings option to then copy it into all the other courses and sections that I need. Say copy. So you only need to do that in one section and then copy them into your others. Now, if you do sync grades using one of our SIS apps, do not use the copy settings option. This is only for folks who do not sync grades back to another gradebook. Okay. All right, now let's talk about those of you who use one of those teacher apps to configure and map your categories to eSchool Plus, Power Teacher Pro, Skyward, Focus, Infinite Campus. There's a lot of them that do. So if you do send those material level grades back using an app that you'll have, your specific app in each course, it'll say eSchool Plus over on the left, Power Teacher Pro, whichever one you use, you'll have that app listed in the left-hand panel of your sections here. So if you're one of those, then you're going to want to go into each one of your sections and start by doing the grade configuration or grade category mapping through the app. Okay, so follow your district's directions on that. I'm sure they've provided great directions for you in terms of mapping those categories and doing that setup in each one of your course sections. You have to use the app so that those categories are mapped together from the beginning. Each different SIS has a little bit of a different setup process with their app. So either, like I said, check out any documentation from your own district that's been provided, or check out the Schoology Support Center. We also have some great resources here for each one of those. So if you can just go ahead and type in your name of your grade book there, and then find the article there on, and it'll go through the setup that you need there. Okay. All right, so that is setting up your categories there. And then choosing your final grade settings. If you have a specific scale from your school or district that you need to select, make sure that you choose that scale. Okay. And then scrolling down, typically these visibility settings are really important to many districts. Again, will be noted in any documentation you get from your district on this grade setup process. Those who sync grades from Schoology to some of those other grade books prefer that overall course grades are only visible in the gradebook of record and not Schoology. If that is you and that's the case, what is the usual recommendation is that you hide your overall grade and your grading period grades and then say save changes. And that again is for typically for those who do sync grades from the Schoology gradebook over to their gradebook of record, and they only want course calculations, course grade calculations to be visible in that gradebook of record. This way, we don't have to worry about confusion between grades not matching. We know that the calculations are happening correctly over in our gradebook of record. So again, consult your individual district guidelines for more information on that grade setup. All right. Now let's go ahead and go through the process of bringing our content in. Make sure I save changes to any of those settings that you make in your grade setup here. Okay. And I'm going to go back to materials. And now I can quickly bring in any of the saved course content that I'm ready for. So I'm going to go to Add Materials, Import from Resources. I'm going to navigate to that collection that I left it in this case, my math folder. And here, I really recommend not checking the course folder and saying import at this point, because if you do, it'll work, but you'll have to unpack your folders once it lands in your new course section. So instead of to save yourself some time, click on the title of the course folder until you see all of your folders within the course here. And then you can either do a select all and bring everything in at once, or if there are certain folders that you're not ready for and you want to do just maybe even the first unit or the first marking period, you can just select the folders that you want for now. Okay. I'm going to go ahead and do a select all just because I don't have that many, and say import. I'm going to say import again. And there is all of my content. So there's a few other steps that we're going to need to go through in order to make sure everything's ready for students. So let's look at things that did get saved and are ready to go, as well as some of those others that we're going to have to make some tweaks to. First of all, editing your picture, uploading those course tiles or those course pictures again. As you can see, you will have to reload those. And I would say that 95% of the time, your folder colors do not travel and will need to be reset. As you can see, mine used to have colors on them, but they came back all in the generic blue color, so I would want to go back and recolor those. The other thing that does not stick are any publish and unpublished folder settings. So in my previous course, when I saved it to resource, I had this curriculum lesson planning folder unpublished because it was not something I wanted students to see. As I imported it into my new course section, it comes in as published. So I'm definitely going to want to go back and unpublish anything that I don't want students to see. Now, what does travel and stick are any student completion rules that you previously had. So wherever you see this little check mark that says must complete, that means somewhere in that folder I had student completion rules. And so as I drill down, I can see it was in this folder. So I'm going to go back and just check those rules, and there they are. So if you need to make, they do come over and will be ready to go. If you need to make any adjustments to those student completion rules, go to options at the top of the folder where they exist and go to student completion. You can then delete any rules that you no longer want by clicking this X, or you can change any of those rules if you need to. So that really only pertains to anybody who did have student completion rules on their materials from last year. All right, the next thing that we know we're going to have to do is reattach any of the documents, the templates that were on any of your Google Drive or your Microsoft assignments. Okay. So in my previous course, these were Google assignments. When I save them to resources and import them back in, the assignment comes in there. However, it is not a Google assignment or a Microsoft assignment. It comes in as what we call a Schoology assignment until I reattach those templates. So a quick process that you have to go to edit each one of those assignments. The assignment should be ready. You're just going to want to click on that Google or OneDrive assignment app. to go ahead and reattach your documents that need to be copied for each student. As soon as you reattach those, it does transform it into a Microsoft or Google assignment. Let me show you something that might save you a little bit of time in doing those. So after you import your content, if you have a number of assignments in different folders here and you want to reattach them all at once, you might use this little all materials index to search just assignments. And then you can go through each one of them one by one, do that editing, add your template. Well, go ahead and do each one. And then when you hit the back button after you've added it, it'll go straight back to your assignment filter here, and you can go to the next one. So I'll go to Edit, Google Drive. If you need to find something in a folder, you can use that search box there. Attach your template, attach. It's going too fast, it says. There we go, and save changes. And I'm just going to hit the back button because I did the filter. So that's the all materials, and then choosing your assignments to quickly get to any of those where you need to reattach those. Okay. All right, so last steps here that we're going to want to do as we set up our courses for next year is go check your gradebook and see if you see columns already created for any of your graded items here. If you do, that means that things matched up. You were reusing categories and they matched up to those categories as they came in. But no matter what, if you come here and you see that none of these columns, that means that you want to go to bulk edit and do some quick adjustments. Either way, bulk edit is a recommended step to go make sure everything's the way you want it, to make some quick changes. So in your grade book, if you go to those three little dots and click bulk edit, it will list all of your graded items, the categories. And again, if you use the same categories and set them up ahead of time or did the mapping ahead of time, then they should have lined up to the same category. It found a place to go. However, if you come to this area and they say ungraded, it means that they need some help and that you're going to need to go ahead and then put them into the right category. You can add new due dates here. Obviously, you're definitely going to want new due dates. And then make sure that they're in the right grading period. As you bring things in, they will come into the current grading period. So if you do choose to bring all of your year's content in at one time, and you're a district that has, multiple marking periods, multiple kind of sub periods as in quarters within that year-long course, you're probably going to need to go in and make some adjustments to choose the other, future grading periods for quarters 2, 3, and 4. And then when you're done, go ahead and say save changes. All right, so you should, after that, should be a quick setup process in order to get your new courses and sections set up. I will point you to a couple resources that we have available. So you can always get into the Schoology Support Center by clicking the little S here. And one of the articles I think that will be helpful is called End of Year Guide for Instructors. Okay. So you can find that easily in our support center. So it goes over a lot of the information that I just gave you. But if you need to do some more searching here, you can get into that support center. And I found that just by clicking end of year. And there's the end of year guide for instructors. Okay. Lots more detailed information in our support center on any, like I mentioned, any of those SIS app setups, if you're looking for resource collections, really quick and easy search to find resources within our support center here, our help center. So I will end with going back to the agenda here that we started with. Make sure that we got through, I think, every bullet here. I think we did. I hope this was helpful, and I hope you all have a restful, wonderful summer.